Anyway, I believe that now you should be able to see me, and I will see you. So, can you see me? I think you should see me now. I turned off the VPN. Apparently, something was wrong with YouTube plus VPN. Now it works. All right, thanks. Sorry for this hassle. Let's start. Thanks for coming. We still have 10 viewers, which is good. As usual, you ask me questions. I answer them about programming, about management, about maybe the philosophy of life for us programmers. We go one by one, and at the end of the stream, we answer the most philosophical question, which we decide to choose during the entire session. That will take about an hour, maybe 10 minutes longer today, because I was having problems with the connectivity with the server. Anyway, the first question: do you practice any team building activities for your team? I know it sounds funny, but they can work sometimes. In general, I believe that team building activities are good things, but we need to be very careful about them. Most of the time, what happens when managers organize such activities, they translate to their people, to their employees, a wrong message. The message which they want to translate sounds like we are friends. It must sound like we are friends. But in reality, it sounds like I pretend to be your friend. And I'm asking you to also pretend to be my friends. It's very easy to read that. Most of you, most of us, me including, we can easily understand what's going on. A manager is not a friend. A manager is somebody who is on the other side of the battle. We work for managers, and managers are trying to make us work for them. We're not friends. In order to make these team building activities more productive and more effective for people, we need to remove these fake ingredient from it. We need to deliver the honest messages there. We need to be able to tell our team that we are different here. I'm your manager, and you work for me. Even if I'm not your, even if I'm not a founder of the company and I'm paying my money to you, it doesn't matter. Even if I work in a company and the money which goes to you are just being distributed by me, I'm still your manager. I'm still responsible for the most important decisions related to your professional life. I'm the one who decides whether you're going to continue working here or you will be fired tomorrow. That's why making these team buildings it may be dangerous, because in most cases you will deliver the wrong message. You will deliver the message that I pretend to be your friend, like I said. The recommendation is simple. When you organize this activity, when you meet with your people in a more comfortable situation than in the office or in their workplaces, it's better to still talk to them about money, about the rewards they get in this office, because this is the primary topic. This is the primary subject of their interest in you personally. They are not very interested in their manager's personal life. They're not very interested in their manager's attitude to cinema or to theater or to books. This is all secondary. The primary interest is how much you're going to pay me and how can I make more money in this company. How can I earn more? Why I'm staying here? What's the point of being your team member? Why I choose you to be my manager? What's in it for me? This is the main question that people want to ask their managers, especially when they are in a informal situation, when they go to a forest doing some team building activities. And if you put this question to the table, if you discuss it somehow, if you touch that question, the team members, they will trust you. They will feel that you are opening yourself in front of them. You talk about what they care about. That you not pretend to be a good friend and you talk about things that might be interesting, but not the main things for them. Talk about money, talk about their career, talk about how do you feel this company will continue. How do you feel about your money? Maybe you can talk about how much money you make. You can probably not going to talk about, but you can somehow touch that subject and say, well, I believe that next year there could be a raise for you guys in your salaries. Why I believe so? Well, because this and that. That will give them way more value in these team building activities than anything else. But usually people don't do that. They just go out, they talk about some blah, 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 what's my family, about my brothers, about my sisters. I don't care about all that. I work for you, you're my manager. All I care about is the money you pay me or the tasks you give me or the strategy you define for me. That's what I need to know. I'm not your friend. I have my friends somewhere else. Remember that. Next question, how important is trust in management and teamwork? You see, you're asking a question which is very close to the previous one. Trust is important, definitely important, but it's very rare ingredient. Very often managers are afraid of giving trust to their people, and that's why people don't trust their managers. We must have this trust, of course, but that I'm talking about the ideal teams. In regular teams, in the teams where all of us work, it's not so much trust in there. And actually, trust usually may hurt you instead of helping you. If you trust too much, you're not giving yourself any advantage comparing to others. You basically lose a lot. If you feel yourself strong, if you feel like nothing can hurt me here and nothing can jeopardize my position in this company, then you can trust these people and you can share more information with them. But this is more like it's like a luxury, I would say. You if you can afford that, then you trust people. But most of us, we cannot afford that. Most people are not good people. Most people are not trained to deal properly with the trust other people give them. Most people cannot keep a secret. They don't even know what it's for. They're like kids. If you tell a secret to a kid, a 5 years old kid, he's not going to hold it for longer. He will just go and share with everybody. Even if you ask the kid, don't tell anybody. Please, this is a secret. Keep it to yourself. A kid cannot hold it, cannot keep a secret. The same for most adults. They just can't do that. They will share it. And then once it's shared, it will go further and further. And eventually somebody will see an opportunity to use this information against you. It just will happen. The more you share, the more trust you give to them, the more you lose. And the same backward. The more they trust you, the more vulnerable I think your position is, because they will blame you for the troubles that will come to them. So I suggest keep the trust to the minimum. If you are in a regular traditional organization, especially in a large organization, the bigger the organization, the lower the quality of people that work there. The best people, they work in smaller companies. In larger organizations, usually people stay there who have the worst personal qualities. That's, I think, just a law of life. Larger groups, they can stick together only if the members of such groups follow the principles of nature, which are not the principles of good people, which are not the principles of high morality. They are the principles of animals. Animals don't know anything about morality. They have no idea what is to be a friend. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be loyal? What does it mean to be polite? What does it mean to be respectful? What does it mean to be reasonable, I would say. They're animals. And the larger the group, the more animals we have to be in order to stay in such a group. Humans and the characteristics of human, they are suitable for small, very small groups, like a small family maybe, or a group of a few friends. This is where you can be a human. This is where you can demonstrate your good qualities, and they will be appreciated there. They will be valued there. If you go to a larger group and become a good human there and demonstrate your good qualities and start sharing your truths with other people and start helping people and start being frankful with them and start telling them how much you care about the success of the group, you're going to be killed. I gave you the example. Jesus Christ is the perfect example of such a behavior. Believe or not believe, it doesn't matter. Jesus Christ, let's consider that as a symbol of that kind of a behavior. He wanted to do good, preaching to a large group of people. He was concerned about their behavior. He was concerned about their style of life. And you see what they did to him. They were all people around him. In the crowd, they were all people, just like people in your organization, just like people who go to your office. It's the same quality of people. It's just a few 100 years difference between them and us. But we are the same. Talking about personality characteristics. There is not so much of a difference. You don't want to be a Jesus Christ. Don't trust them. If you are ready to be Jesus Christ, if you are ready to be crucified, then go out and talk to people and share what you think and be a human. But be prepared to be crucified. It's going to happen eventually, in some way or the other. Next question. Developer 20 plus years experience. It's hard to convince him of anything related to code or management. He knows better. But at the same time, he solves tasks fast. So what kind of ABC player is he? Well, he solves tasks fast. What kind of player ABC? Well, depends on who is the manager of this guy. Depends on what kind of task you're giving to this guy. If this person is a member of a larger team where the tasks are not so important to be solved, but we are much more interested in keeping the group together, for example, and making sure that the younger people join our group and they grow together with us, then probably this guy is not a good person for that. Imagine you're trying to build a research group, an R&D team. The team where we expect to have 20 people in a few years, and these 20 people are supposed to be good researchers in the future. What kind of leader you would put in this group? The leader has to be able to listen and to be able to share way more than to personally contribute to something. We need this guy to be able to encourage others to become researchers. And just by giving them an example of yourself, showing how good you are and I know better, is not the best encouragement. Maybe for some of them, but the majority of people are not encouraged by that. They are encouraged when we give something to them, some knowledge, some career path, helping them to grow. So these guys may be good for a small team, maybe 1-2 people, and then you give this guy a task, he completes the task, and then he's the A player. But if it's a larger group, then definitely it's a C player. It's a marginal player. Maybe he's an A player, but that's a marginal figure. We need to move that guy to somewhere else, to another group, to another team, to another task, but not keep that guy in the team, I think. Next question. What is the best place for PhD in program analysis? United States, it's extremely hard to get. China or Russia? To get a PhD in program analysis. I don't think it's extremely hard to get to the United States. I don't think so. And I don't think that China and Russia are just the other two possible options. There is also Europe. I think that Europe, in the area of education, is not weaker than America. Maybe even to some extent, maybe even stronger. If you look at the papers published in such conferences, which are related to programming languages or analysis of the code, you will see that they're not coming mostly from one particular American group or institution, while European institutions, they sometimes present a lot of papers together in one conference. I'm subscribed to a number of such groups in Europe and a few universities in America, and I see that in America it seems that there are many universities there and there are many professors, many groups, but they're not really like staying together that solid as in Europe. In general, I think European education is quite strong. European economy sucks, right? European business is very hard to get to, and it's not really growing fast. European startup environment sucks 100%. They don't know how to make startups. They're very slow in that. They're very conservative. They're very pessimistic and skeptical about taking risks. They're not risk friendly. But in terms of education, they're very good. So I would consider Europe as well. China, maybe. I'm not sure. But maybe Hong Kong, maybe Singapore. Those territories are not so bad. You can subscribe to SE World mailing list. They publish there very often PhD positions. All you need to do is just send an email to the professor who has open PhD positions, explain what you have, present a few papers, which you must have in order to get there, and they will reply to you, I hope. I'm not sure, but it may happen. And then see which option you can select. But definitely try this. Try many options. I don't think it's super important, but it is important to pick the right professor. With the right professor, you will get good papers published very soon. With another professor who is not so professional in writing papers and in choosing the right topic and making them published, you may just waste your 4 years of your life and get just a few minor papers published. That will not be a good result of the PhD. The main result of the PhD study is a few big papers published and your participation in the research group. You must be in the group. You must learn from the professor. You must join their direction. And with them, you will move up. Look at the famous researchers and look at the people who contributed to computer science. They always have a good teacher. They always have somebody who was coming before them, who shared with them the information, the knowledge, the practices, everything which is necessary in order to become a famous scientist. And then these people, they continue to share that. They get the students and they share with them and so on and so forth. In the 2 or 3 or maybe 4 generations, we get people who are Nobel Prize winners. But they're not coming from nowhere, these Nobel Prize winners. They're not by themselves just born smart. It doesn't happen, or maybe very, very rarely. Usually it's a result of a few generations before them who were preparing them, making every next generation better, more professional in the research area. Next question. Can you suggest on how to learn on code of others? For example, you meet a code example or approach or trick you would like to use this in the future. What do you do in such case? How not to forget or lose it? Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, usually what happens to me is that I learn how not to code like others, to be honest. I just look at the code and I see that this is not what I want to do. This is something I hate to do. And then I try to create some sort of a linter or some sort of a checker which will catch my mistakes if I repeat them in my code, so that I don't do what other people do. In your case, maybe you can create a blog. Just create a website where you will record all the good examples of the code which you meet during your professional life or your study time, and just post small articles about each example saying that this is good, I like it, I'm gonna do the same because this is the right style of coding, and that's it. We will see what you share. In general, the best way to learn something, I think everybody knows that, is to teach that to somebody else. And if you don't have such a student who you may teach us, teach everybody, and see the reaction of the community. Show us what is good, what is bad, and we will tell you whether you know something or maybe that's just obvious and that we will just move on. But still, you will have the place where everything is recorded. Next question. Can you share your story on how you got into teaching in the university? Yeah, it's not so difficult. A professor who I know offered me that. He said, how about you try that? And I said, yeah, I can try. Maybe it will work. And then I got the first course I was teaching. And then they said, after I finished that course, they said, how about you continue? We can give you another course. And then I said, how about I teach this course instead of that one? And they said, well, yeah, maybe. We discussed a little bit, and then step by step. It's again, like I just mentioned before, it's always about the previous people who were before you. In general, it's impossible to acquire success. Success always comes to you from others. They give you the success. It's very unusual, untypical situation when you're coming from nowhere and then you just grab success and you get it and you become successful. No. Usually it's somebody else who will see that you deserve success and they will offer it to you. They will give it to you. They will say, now I think that you deserve to be a teacher. Hey, what do you think about that? Your job is just to accept it and say, yeah, sure, I'm going to try. You can lose it, of course. You can fail. That may happen. And then I did the same. I offered to a few of my friends the same opportunity. I told them, hey, I know the university which is looking for good teachers, and I think you could be a good teacher. How about I connect you guys? And I connected them. And actually, one of them became a teacher as well in the university after this introduction. But I doubt that he would get that if he would just go to the university from the front door and say, hey, hello, this is my CV. I would like to be a teacher in the university. That would be way more difficult. And most probably, he would be unlucky. In general, find somebody who may potentially share their success with you. That's a recommendation I would give to myself if I would be 20 years younger. Unfortunately, I didn't have that recommendation at that time. Don't try to be successful by yourself. Try to join people who are already successful and potentially may share their success with you. Be helpful to them. Be useful to them. Be loyal to them. Be nice to them. Be helpful to them. All of that. And eventually they will give you what you want. Of course, you can make a mistake of choosing these people. You can choose the wrong people. You can choose the wrong guy, the wrong group. Yes, and then you will be less successful than others. But if you don't choose anyone, if you continue doing that by yourself, if you don't join any group, then your chances are way lower. Next question. If you are a monopoly supporter, why don't you adhere to Spring Monopoly in Java development? Seems like you are the person which support monopolies by words, but in fact is strong against them. Um, I don't think I support monopoly the way you formulated it. It's a question which is hard to explain, but I will try. I believe that that in order to make something good, a competition is not the only possible way to achieve that. There are other ways. And one of them, which I think is the most effective, is when somebody demands you to do something good. Again, the competition is when let's say, have two programmers and I want a good software to be developed. I put them together in the same office and I tell them, you compete to each other. Those of you who will create the best solution is going to win and is going to get the money, and the other person will lose. That's one way to achieve quality. Another way is to get just one programmer and tell him that if you don't make a good software, I don't know, I'm going to do something very bad to you. I don't know what. I'll not pay you, or I'm going to punish you somehow. Let's put it this way. I think the second option is better than the first one, because in the second option, I will control what this guy is doing. I will tell this guy what is right, what is wrong. I will postulate and I will enforce the rules of his work, the rules of quality, the instruments of control will be there. And I will be in charge. And he will be more happy. He will know exactly what is expected. He will know who is the acceptance criteria provider. And that is very effective environment for people in general, to work for somebody, to work for a requirements provider, especially when the requirements provider is professional, even more professional than we who work for these people. If I'm a programmer and I work for I don't know who, and my job is just to beat the competitor, it's stressful and it's not comfortable. But if I work for people who are super professional, way more professional than me, and I respect them for that, and I know exactly what they want, they tell me about that, I'm very much motivated to go above my head, to go in an extra mile to satisfy their requirements. That's what I in general believe. That's what I in general think about monopoly. And monopoly is exactly that case. When we have the monopoly, we have one large, let's say, organization, and we have somebody on top of the organization, some people who control how this monopoly works, some providers of the requirements, or maybe the providers of punishment. If it's, for example, the taxi company, yeah, we have one large taxi company in the country. And on top of the taxi company, we have the government organization which punishes this company if the quality of driving is low, if the prices are too high, if the passengers are not happy, if we have the punishment instruments. Again, if the prices are too high, we're going to go to the manager of this company and put him in jail, let's say. It's much better than having two companies, two taxi companies, and let them compete against each other. And now you're asking me why not Spring Framework, right? It's because it's a monopoly. Because there is nobody on top of this monopoly. Nobody is telling these guys how web framework is supposed to be designed. They are on their own. They are driven by the crowd. The crowd is telling them what is right, what is wrong. And the crowd is always wrong. In democracy, that's what you have. You have the crowd who's managing you, and the crowd is always stupid. A crowd cannot be smart. You cannot expect the majority to be smarter than the minority. It's impossible. Just because people are in general, if you separate people on their IQ level, then you're going to get the minority with a high IQ and the majority with a low IQ. Humans, animals, whatever, insects, they're all split like that. The minority is always smart. The majority is always stupid. But Spring Framework is made by the request of the majority. The majority said what is right. Just like the Java language. The Java is being developed more and more by the requests of the majority. Millions of programmers want Java to look like PHP, and PHP look like C#, and C# look like C++. There is no minority behind Spring Framework, which is strongly motivated to do something good, and which is under control of somebody. Somebody should stay on top of Spring Framework, and tell them what's right. Who is this guy? Who is this government representative? There is nobody. It's just done the way it's done. Go talk to them and say that something is wrong here. This design is wrong. Let's make it better. And listen to what they tell you. They will tell you we have the support of the community. The community wants that. That's why we made it. Because we had the requests, the pull requests or whatever, feature requests, and then we voted for it. We vote. We ask people, what do you think is right? And then the votes are being collected. The crowd says, yes, we want that. Because it's better for us. We have no idea what's better, what's good and bad in object-oriented programming. But we like that feature. Give it to us. And Spring, just give it to them. That's what I think. Next question. What can you say about DDD? Domain-driven design. Good thing in general. It's very close to the concept of elegant objects. Definitely good way to practice design of software. Next question. Is it useful to change the country for your master or PhD and come back, in your opinion? Definitely. If you have such a possibility, if you can go somewhere else and study there for master degree or PhD degree and then come back to your motherland, that would be fantastic for everything, for your career development, for your point of view in general as a human, for your psychological even level of development, for many things, for you as a person. You will see other country, you will see other people, you will understand the differences between you and other people. You will maybe learn another language. All of that will only be good for you. Do that, if it's possible, if you have the money for that. Or if they give you the scholarship, then definitely go there. It's good for the ecosystem as well. The students from one country, they go to another country, then those students, they come to that country. We exchange students, we share knowledge, we break the borders between countries, which are fake borders, as I understand. The countries, in general, right now, it's quite fake creatures, entities. Why do we need 27 or 28 countries in Europe? Can you tell me that? What's the point of having 27 presidents? What's the point of having 27 governments? What's the point of having 27 languages in the first place? But languages, okay, we can forgive that because there's some cultural heritage which we don't want to throw away. But governments, these countries, they're small and they're super small. Some of them are tiny, but we still have them. It's better to break those borders. It's better to, in general, make the whole world one large country. That would be ideal. It doesn't happen because there are so many people don't want that. There are so many these government-related people. There are so many those corrupted people who definitely don't want to work, but they want to be paid. And these people keep the countries alive. They keep the borders under control. They even encourage us to fight against each other, one country against another country. This is the best situation for the two governments. Not a good situation for two nations, but it's excellent for two governments. Okay, now you correct me about the people. Yeah, I agree that people, it's it's a singular. You often say that you need to be a specialist for a successful career, but it quickly gets boring because technologies are evolving, and I want to be involved. What to do? This is my eternal dilemma. The more narrow you are as a specialist, the easier it's going to be for you to stay involved and to stay current with the technologies. They evolve, they get more advanced, and you follow. You know how they grow because you focus on one particular technology. But if you are in general just Java developer, for example, or in general software developer and programmer, front-end developer, then it may be quite hard for you to stay focused on the changes in the CSS standard, for example. You don't know too much about CSS, you just use CSS. But the CSS standard goes forward and improves, and there are many, many interesting things there which you can do just with CSS. So just being a front-end developer is too much, is too wide domain of knowledge. It's better to be more specific, an expert in this particular framework or an expert in CSS. You may work at the same time as a just front-end developer. It's okay to make money, but at the same time, position yourself as an expert in CSS. Join this, I don't know if it's possible, join the standard group which develops CSS. Make your own blog about CSS. Answer questions about CSS on Stack Overflow. Join all the possible newsletter groups which are related to CSS. Join all the Telegram groups which are CSS related. Just be specific about CSS. For example, I'm just improvising. In your CV, you can say, I'm front-end developer, which is quite wide. I know all the different frameworks, but at the same time, in the CV, say there that my specific focus, my primary interest is the CSS. Next question. What if we will use design by contract as a DBC-driven framework? And can it give more constraints for LLMs? I think in general, this is what's going to happen. I think this design by contract, maybe not in a way it was originally suggested by Dr. Meyer, but it will be the way to write code. Programmers will be less about writing lines of code and more about creating those contracts, creating expectations for the code. There will be large piles of lines of code in front of us, which are written by artificial intelligence, by the machines who work the way we don't know how. They will put changes to the source code. We will have no ability in just a few years to control them, to review their pull requests. They will send you pull requests and you will just trust them. It happens already now. When I use Claude Code from the command line, I ask it to change my code, and what it sends back, the changes, the diffs which come back, sometimes I can't even review. I can't understand what's going on there. But the build stays clean, stays green. I try to review it. I try to put some effort there and make it, criticize its work. But that's for now, because it's very early versions of the tool. In a few months, not even years, in a few months, the tool will become as powerful as it is necessary to convince me that the changes it makes are good enough. But they're not perfect, and I cannot make them perfect. When I ask this Claude Code to fix the bug in my code base, the fix is coming back, including 50 lines changed, 50 different lines. 50 of them are green, like in the diff, and maybe even 20 other lines that are red. Something has been changed. I can either accept or not accept. it's very difficult to correct this tool, to correct the robot and say, could you please, in the line 17, do it a little bit different? Because it's not a human. It's not like a human being which will listen to such a correction. What it usually will do, if I do such a correction, it will generate something else, some other groups of lines, which again will contain some error, some inconsistency, some slight mistakes, little mistakes, which are on one hand important, but on the other hand tolerable if I want the bug to be fixed. I care about the bug. Especially me, I really pay attention to details usually. I care about the details. But if the bug fix is right in front of me, and I know that my corrections will not help, nobody gonna listen to them, because this machine is not really a human being. It doesn't listen to little corrections. I either need to take it or leave it. Either I merge what is suggested, or I just reject it. Now I see those mistakes. In the future, there will be less and less of them, and I will just accept and accept and accept. And after 10 or 20 of such changes coming from the robot, my code will look very much different from what I like to see there. What's left for me as a programmer? My ability to formulate the next requirement to the robot. In English, not in Java. In English. I will have to be able later, after all these 20 changes, to tell the robot that I still don't like something and formulate it the way that the pull request 21 will come to my code base with the proper value. That's going to be my skill. How can I formulate? And I think that all these formulations, all these requests to the robot will need to be recorded, will need to stay in the code base. There will be a list of requirements, a list of demands, a list of complaints expressed by a human being while the code was developed. You start with a clean repository. You start telling your machine what needs to be done. It starts giving you the code. But what you were telling the machine need to be recorded. Ideally, in form of tickets. Every time you request something, it's a ticket. You request, it's a ticket. You request, it's a ticket. But not necessarily. Maybe it will stay somewhere else. Maybe it will be a database or a backlog or a list of constraints. You're saying domain, you say designed by contract. It's going to be designed by complaints. Also DBC, but complaints. The more complaints you express, the more professional you are in expressing them, the more persistent they are, the better you keep them in the repository. And the more attention the machine will pay to them, the better in the end will be the code, the product. The code will never be good anymore. We need to forget about that. It's gone. The code will be at some level of maintainability. It's not going to be something that a human being will be interested to look at. But that's okay, because the era of manual code typing is slowly fading out. The era of constraints development is coming. You need to be able to formulate, like, you are doing in this particular class something wrong. It shouldn't be done this way. You should not inherit this class from another class because this and that. You should try to stay away from singletons because this and that. Instead, you should focus on using adapter design pattern because this and that. Period. That's your constraint. That's your complaint. You put it there. And then the machine will pay attention to this one, to next one, to all of the 100 constraints which you put there. And it will be interesting to see how on the left side we have a list of constraints. On the right side we have a pile of code and pile of lines of code which probably, most probably, adhere to the constraints on the left side. Next question. That's a question about the comments. You better. Well, okay, I'll read it out loud. I helped reviewing the Angry Tests book. What are your thoughts about the comments in general? In general, it was extremely helpful. I mean the review process. I finished the book in 1 month, just January. I started writing on the 1st of January. At the end of January, the book was ready. And then I spent 2 other months, the February and March, on rewriting it. Because the final version is far away from the original one. You will get it. You will get the copy of the book soon by mail as a reviewer, and you will see the difference. How far the final result is from the original one. I learned a lot from you guys. Some of you, even not some, most of you actually taught me a lot of things in testing. I didn't know them. It was interesting. I learned a lot more from fixing the book, comparing to what I learned when I was writing. I will definitely do it again when I write the second volume of the book, and I will, because I have the material for the second volume already. The first volume is out, but I already have 3 pages, line by line, of the topics which need to be covered in the second volume. Every line is the topic, and you can imagine 3 pages. So maybe I have 100 of them already, 100 topics, which I know that I need to cover, which didn't fit into the first volume. The book is called Angry Tests, for those who doesn't know. It's available on sale on Amazon. Next question. What should I not learn as a beginner in programming? If I want to become a hired developer, Python for example, I want to focus only on what I need to know, not some low-level theories. Well, actually depends on where you want to be hired. If you want to be hired by Google, it's one story. If you want to be hired by some mom-pop shop, then it's probably a different story. But let's say you want to get hired by Google. Then probably you don't need to learn how to build software. You need to learn how to pass an interview. They probably not going to ask you at the interview what kind of software you built in the past. They are too snobby for that. They will ask you, how can you solve the problems which we give you right now at the interview? And you should be able to do that. They don't care about your past. They don't care about your open source contribution. They don't care about your previous experience. All of that doesn't matter. They care about coding abilities, which you demonstrate at the interview, or thinking abilities. Not only coding abilities, but design abilities, thinking abilities, problem-solving abilities. Just get a few books which are exactly about that, how to pass an interview in Google, and just train yourself. It will also help if you get an account on Codeforces or LitCode and practice problem solving there. And boost your account there. Just try to solve many tasks there. Eventually your account will become big enough, with good enough reputation. This you can demonstrate to them, but not only that. This will give you the practice. This will give you the ability to solve these tasks. That's one story. That's about Google or similar companies, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all of this. Another story, if you want to be hired by just regular company, smaller company, and where you can be a good programmer. In this case, probably you don't need to know much about programming, I would say. You don't need to be able to solve all these tasks, but you need to be able to demonstrate your projects. In this case, don't learn, I would say, programming low level that way. You don't need to know many algorithms. Instead, create something on your own, maybe some projects, which you will be able to show them. And they will like that. They will probably skip maybe the interview, maybe they will ask you simple questions. They have no luxury of choosing the people from the market. That's why they behave like that. They are not Google. They cannot throw away 5 out of 6 candidates. They cannot do that. That's why they take you in if you show them something which will make you look different in a good way from other candidates. What that could be. Something which is visible, something tangible. Maybe a website, maybe an open source framework, something like that. Impress them. They usually make decisions emotionally, small companies. There will be some CTO or VP of engineering sitting there, and if you can impress that guy, you're in. Impress. And these guys are usually not programmers. Well, they were, but they're not anymore. I hope I answered your question. Next one. How do you prioritize your work in the company? And can you give brief, ideally, or nice work environment for software engineers from your perspective? Thanks for your answer. Okay, let me answer this question in a few seconds. Let's call it theoretical, philosophical question. I think it's interesting. Let's put it to the end of the stream. Next question. You want interview with Linus Torvalds? Oh, definitely. I would love to. I actually emailed him once a few years ago. Well, he didn't reply. I think he's getting that emails almost every day. But definitely that would be interesting. I think he's really one of the best programmers in the world. Not because Linux is popular. This is separate story. I don't care that much about this. But because he is writing code and reviewing code for so many years straight, and he managed to create 2 systems, 2 products, Linux and Git. And this is amazing. Usually people are successful in one way. You just make one company, Microsoft for example, but you don't make a second company. You just make one and you contribute there, you show yourself to the full extent, and you cannot repeat that because you can't. But this guy is awesome. He created 2 products which I personally use, and they're done well, I believe. And he managed to put together a great team around him. A lot of people contribute, even though he's not a nice guy. I think he's not a guy who is interested in pleasing other people and making them happy. He's technically focused. He cares about quality. Anyway, he's definitely my role model, I would say. Next question. We have a few more left and then we finish. Has a comment about Spring that it's not controlled by minority majority, it's driven by business making money. Yeah, which is the same as the majority. Do you think AI will replace middle and junior programmers? No, AI will not replace middle and junior programmers. AI will replace tools in the hands of middle and junior programmers. Now these middle and junior programmers, they use books, for example, in order to write code. Or they use Stack Overflow in order to solve problems. In 3 years, they will use ChatGPT, or they already use ChatGPT, to do the same, to solve problems, to implement code, to put the functionality into their products. In 10 years, they will use more advanced AI tools. But there will still be people doing that. Even if AI will work better than these people and will be able to write code 10 times or 100 times faster than a junior programmer, we're still going to have a junior programmer sitting on top of that tool and doing something else, like suggesting changes or reviewing the code written by these tools and something like that. They will exist, these junior programmers. Well, I think it's impossible to have only senior programmers in the first place, right? They're going to die eventually. Who will replace them? We need to have junior programmers, and then they become middle level, and then they become senior. I'm not pessimistic about the future of junior people. No. What books have you read recently? Can you recommend any books for advanced level software engineering? I already read Elegant Objects. Well, the latest book I read just basically a month ago was the book by Robert Martin, and the book is called We Programmers. It was published, I think, a few months ago, and it's a book about the history of programming. There are no many lines of code there, maybe none, but it's quite interesting to read. He basically explains what happened since the first computer was invented. And there are a lot of things there that that didn't know before. And it's well written, of course, because it's Robert Martin. It's really well written. Definitely worth reading that. How do you handle it when you're not able to solve a problem in a project? I go to ChatGPT. That's what I do. If it's a technical problem, of course. Now I go to ChatGPT. Previously, last year, I was going to Stack Overflow, posting a question, starting a discussion with people there. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, ChatGPT or Claude AI are way more effective than Stack Overflow. And that's a huge problem. We all understand that. It's a huge problem because Stack Overflow is not getting new knowledge from me. I'm not posting there. I'm not provoking people to post answers. It's probably a separate question to talk about. I think all of us understand that. It's a problem. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe some prohibition of AI. Maybe Stack Overflow will just prohibit AI to fetch their data, to take the data from Stack Overflow. Maybe should be some regulations about that. But now we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot as a civilization, as a software engineers in general, as a community. Okay, there's a question about China. China spends a lot of resources on education. You can see on YouTube how hard children and teenagers study in China. Can you say that highly qualified specialists in China are much more educated and smarter than, for example, in Russia or America? Well, my personal experience of working with Chinese people, software developers, does not tell me that they are smarter than Russian software engineers or better educated. I don't see that. I see the code which they write, and I see the code which Russian people write, and I don't see much of a difference. I would even say that Chinese code is more difficult for me to read because it contains Chinese comments. I think Russian people don't do that so often. Aside from that, I think I don't think that they're smarter. More educated. Well, definitely the education in China, especially higher education, is definitely better than in Russia. I don't think in Russia we have proper computer science education at all. I think we have something that looks like education, but in reality it's just a large number of Python and JavaScript courses spread over multiple universities which pretend to be organizations for higher education, but in reality they just teach people how to write Python, and sometimes not even teach them how to write Python, but pretend to teach them. In reality, the majority of students, they don't study there. They study maybe the first year, maybe the second year, but then they just go and work somewhere, because the scholarship they get from the universities is very small. They cannot live on that money, and they go and they work, usually full-time. When you meet a student who is the fourth year student bachelor, this guy will definitely be full-time employed somewhere, which means that he cannot, or she cannot, spend time on education anymore. I have these students, I have these diploma work people, and they have some coursework they do with me. They have no time for education. They barely have time to do a little bit to finish the diploma work. But I cannot expect them to commit to diploma work full time. It's impossible. But in China, I think they spend more time. Maybe they have bigger scholarship. It's all about money, basically. If you give these students more money, they will be able to choose in favor of education versus full-time employment. Okay, now the final question, which is sort of philosophical. Let me read it out loud again. How do you prioritize your work in the company? And can you, what is the ideal work environment for software engineers from my perspective? I think the best work environment is when there is no work. If you call this work, if you call it office, if you call it company, if you call it employment, then you already lose the ability to call it ideal, or to call it perfect, or to call it suitable. It's not about that. The best environment is when people who participate in something, they do it because they love it. They do it because this is what they would do in any case. If you leave them alone, don't tell them what to do, they will still continue doing that. That would be the ideal environment. To have such an environment, you need to configure the rules of work, the rules of communication between people and money, between people and resources, which people need in order to survive and in order to feel good about their life. This relationship between money, which we want to take from let's say from the bank, and us, they must be transparent, they must be reasonable, they must be fair. In this case, the work will be a pleasure, the work will be fun, we will enjoy it, and we will be happy to go there. Fair. I know that there is money, I know that there is a bank account there, I know that this money was placed there into this bank account by somebody who need to get what I can give to them. Ideally, I would just go directly to that people and ask them, what do you want? But I cannot do that because they're far away and I don't know them. Let's say I develop a new mobile game, which is going to be played by thousands or hundreds of thousands of people on the market. Ideally, I would ask them to give me money personally, each of them. You give me $1, you give me $1, and so on and so forth. That would be ideal for me. But it's hard. I don't know them. There's too many of them. That's why some guy who pretends to be a businessman, collects this money from these people, places this money into one bank account, and then distributes this money among us programmers, among 10 people who create this mobile game. I want this distribution to be as fair as possible. Fair for them who play the game and for me who develop the game. And maybe some people who stay in the middle, who distribute this money somehow, who plan this work, who actually found these people, all of that. If I believe that this distribution is fair, I enjoy working there. And fair means that, for example, I get more money because I work better than another guy who sits next to me and also does something, but does it with a lower quality. I want to see that I'm fairly getting better, getting more, getting paid better, getting more money. Or the other way around, I know that I'm not as good as another person, and because of that, that other person gets more money. I will enjoy that situation as well, because I will know that as soon as I get better, I will be paid more. But if I see that I get this money and another guy who is better than me gets the same money, what does it tell me? It tells me no need to grow here, no need to improve here, no need to be a better contributor, no need to write more code. You're not going to get more money. This distribution of resources is the primary objective of any company, of any government, of any country. And this fairness is usually in deficit in most companies. And people don't think it's important. The management, the bosses, the government, they don't understand the importance of that. They just, whatever. Okay, there are 10 programmers, give them each the same salary, they will be happy. That's what most managers believe. That equality is the source of happiness. But it's not. Fairness is the source of happiness. Not equality. Equality is the source of depression. If you make people equal, you make best people depressed. And the worst people, cocky and even worse than they were before. But that's difficult. It's difficult to establish such a fairness. It's difficult to set up the rules of management so that that everyone will feel properly rewarded and properly punished. The better manager you are, the better you can establish that. And then people, if they see that, if they understand that, if they feel the fairness, they will respect you as a manager. Way more than another manager who is doing team building activities and telling them every day that they are his friends. That's a fake manager. That's an imposter. He's not a manager. He pretends to be a manager. A proper manager constantly, every day, thinks about one primary problem: how to make the distribution of resources among my people fair. That's what I believe management is about. Anyway, thanks for coming. Sorry about the trouble in the beginning. I see you, everybody, next week, the same time, same